Right, it's not pretty, but it's functional. So I've decided to take the step of protecting the new boot ear. In fact, both of the new boot ears, boot ear odoratas. And you might be thinking, why am I protecting boot ear odorata and maybe not the Washingtonia robusta, which is, you know, probably not quite as cold hardy? Or why am I not protecting the smaller boot ear here? Well, the reason for that is these smaller palms have been out and seen UK winters for the last 2 or 3 years, and they've acclimatised to our winters no problem at all. But this particular specimen is new and probably imported from southern Europe, so after reading a few horror stories from people on the comments about losing new boot ears, even though you know, good size, if they're not had a full-on winter, someone said they had a spear pull and it's not grown since 2 years later. So I mean, I'm not going to take any chances. They're not cheap palms, and like I say, it's not pretty, but it's going to be functional. So with this particular palm, I've got a couple of options how to do this, and obviously I'm not going to go full on like maybe they would in the US or Canada, where they box them totally in and heat them. I don't think we need to go to that extreme, but I just wanted to keep them a little bit cooler, protection from the cold in a way of overhead protection from the frosts, and keep them drier. So like I say, it's been raining all night and a lot this morning. We can see the ground is soaking wet here, but if we come in underneath the shelter, it's totally dry. So, and all we've done here literally is I've got a frame on top, just a wooden frame with some sort of corrugated plastic clear on that, slanted back and screwed to the fence across 2 fence panels. They're not slotting panels, they are feather edging, so they're a bit more solid. So the water's going to run off backwards and at the back there, because there's nothing there that needs to be worried about being kept too damp. We've got a fatsia and some other bits at the back there, but so the boot ear itself is a bit closer to the front of the border. So yeah, the overhead protection, and I've just got some clear corrugated panels on the front, just to stop the worst of the wind and rain coming in from the front angle. But I think it is important to leave at least one side open. Here I've got 2 sides open, so it's open to the side, so we're going to get some nice through breeze coming in here, and open this side also because of the fronds were quite big. I didn't want to tie the fronds back, because one, I don't like them tied back for months on end. Got more chance of getting some damp in there, and also you just want the through breeze coming in there. And yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to tie them back tight. I mean, if you can remember when I bought this palm, the centre fronds were yellow because that had been tied back for, in my opinion, some probably 3 or 4 weeks by the look of it, so right yellow. Obviously they've greened up now. Yeah, so we've got open 2 sides, we've got the fence at the back, and we've just got, so literally just the top protected and one side where the worst of the winds are going to come. And I'm well aware that where the fronds are touching this, if we get a freeze, that's probably going to brown them off, get some brown tip and all, maybe brown off the frond totally, but I'd rather have a couple of brown tips and a damaged frond than lose the whole plant. So there's the theory behind that. So that is a look at one of them. So this is like a lean-to against the fence. Literally all we've done is got some 2-metre stakes and knocked them into the ground at least 6 to 8 inches, and then we've just put the roof on, screwed them securely, and then we've got a cross brace from top to bottom to make it nice and sturdy, because the wind is going to come from this direction mainly over winter. So this is going to be the weak point, but because that's cross braced there, that's nice and solid. So the biggest concern with this one would be the wind catching these panels, but they are secured in several places, so there's a little bit of flex in them, so that does help. And I've used these panels for the last 3 or 4 years and never really had a panel fail on me and rip off in the wind. So as long as they're secured properly, they're not a problem. So that's a good way of protecting a large palm in the ground. So that's like a lean-to shelter, and I'll show you the freestanding one that I've done with the other Bootea odorata, which is over here. So I didn't really want to connect this one to the fence, just due to the euonymus at the back there, which is sort of grown up and would have made it a bit difficult. And the idea was for everything to be freestanding, but regardless of that, this is the freestanding shelter I've made. So again, we've got the roof, which is just 2 panels of corrugated clear plastic on a framework. So that's keeping it dry, slanted again to the back, so that all the water's going to go to the back there. So it's actually not going to go into this raised area that I've made. So that's going to be nice free drain in there anyway. And then again, we've got the stakes, 2-metre stakes knocked in the ground, nice and solid. The weakest part of the stakes, obviously the higher up you go. Without this side bracing, this thing was wobbling about, something chronic. But just putting a cross beam from the top at the weak point to the bottom, which is the strongest point, down here. Obviously the strongest point is where it's closer to the ground. So what we've made here is you know, there's very little movement in that. I can push that, so the wind is not going to affect that. It's not going to blow away because they're staked in, they're, you know, pretty solid in the ground. And then luckily I had some similar to what I used, all the same stuff as what I used for my arid bed cover, which is some stuff they've thrown out at work. Nice thick plastic, clear plastic, flexible. So I've just wrapped it round, again, the front portion, or side front, and then full front, and then we ran out halfway through this side. But again, yeah, it is important to leave a gap somewhere, and obviously the back's going to be open, but we've got the fence behind it. But so we've got a side panel here which is sort of half covered, so again that's stopping most of the wind and rain getting in, keeping it a bit dry. With the overhead protection, we're not getting the frosts on it, so hopefully that'll be enough to pull it through the winter. Because again, I don't know where this palm has come from, and at this size they should be fully hardy in the UK, but like I say, it's probably not come from the UK. Yeah, so that is how I'm protecting some potentially less hardy palms over the winter. So I'm not really intending to do this every year, obviously. This is a one-off. If we don't get too much damage to the palm itself, I mean, again, I'm expecting some brown tipping where any fronds are touching the outer edges, and mainly this side, but I'm not too concerned because this is an old frond anyway, which has already started to get a bit of brown tipping, so I weren't too fussed about that one. So yeah, the idea is just to keep it from getting any hard freezes and keep it a little bit drier and a little bit shelter from them biting cold winter winds. So I've done similar things in the past to smaller palms in the ground and had no problems whatsoever. Like I say, as long as you've got open areas for the air to circulate and the wind to blow through, you're not going to get any condensation build up or any sort of stale air, especially if the sun does come out, and that you don't want it heating up too much, and like I say, that causes a lot of condensation. So plenty of open areas. So I'm well aware that yesterday, I built these Friday. Yesterday was a really sort of sunny, warm day, and it did warm up in there. So the bonus of doing this earlier than I needed to is that you're still going to get some growth out of the palms, because they do heat up when the sun's out, and even in midwinter, that's going to be a few degrees warmer in there during the day than it would be, you know, just that shelter from the wind and the sun coming through. That does, you do get a little bit of a greenhouse effect in there, even with open sides, and we've got a good foot gap at the bottom as well. So that's going to warm up without getting too humid and too much condensation build up. Right, so that is the freestanding one. Like I say, should be pretty solid. And then we've got another freestanding one in the centre, and I weren't going to cover this palm. So this is the Bolivian mountain coconut, or Parajabaya Torrellii, and we can see old fronds from last winter. We have got some, to get some brown tipping and some spotting on the leaves. We've got a few nice new leaves come out since, you know, this summer. In fact, we had 3 decent new leaves, so I want to keep them looking a bit better, and I thought, well, I've already built 2 shelters, I've got enough bits to make a third, so we've got a third shelter there for that. And again, it's enclosed 3 sides, but open on the 4th side, so again, no humidity build up, no condensation, just protection from the main areas where the wind's going to come from. And I've obviously left this side open because that's the most protected side, so even though we've got sort of big trees at the back, we do get winds come from that, which is basically north, so we do get northerly winds in winter, and we tend to get southerly. But from this side we've got the fence, obviously, so we're not going to get, the least wind we're going to get is from this direction, so that's the open side where the wind's going to come from. So yeah, there's 3 palms, fairly large, medium to large palms if you like, which are got varying degrees of protection. And like I say, if we don't get any major damage this year, I mean, depending on how severe the winter's going to be, then next year I ain't going to bother at all. I just wanted to sort of guarantee the first winter in the UK that they pull through, so that's the steps I've taken to do that. Like I say, if you've got a Washingtonia robusta, say a small one, maybe like this one, you could do a similar thing with just putting a shelter over the top, just to stop that frost from collecting on the fronds, keep them looking a bit nicer, and just keeping the damp off. That can be a difference between losing a palm and sort of coming through winter and doing well the next year. You can set a palm back badly if it has a bad winter. I mean, worst case scenario, you get the spear pull, which again, talked about it a few times, with Phoenix Canariensis at the back. Again, not necessarily the hardiest palm to grow in the UK, but the first couple of years I brought it, I did protect it, and every year after that it gets a little bit hardier, and obviously as it puts on growth and size, it gets hardier still. So I certainly won't worry about protecting that, and I won't worry about protecting these Washingtonia robusta here. And hopefully next year I won't need to worry about protecting the boot ears. What I'm not going to protect, which I have done over the last few years, are the palms in the middle here. These have all been grown from small seedlings, and the last 4 years I've put basically a similar shelter to what we've got over the bigger palms here, just a shelter over these, but to be honest, they don't need it. I mean, the only palm here which I'd be questionable about is maybe the Brahea edulis, but I think that should be okay. Yes, it's come through all the winters so far from a very small seedling and not caused me any problems. I will just say the new change I've made, I did have a Livingstona chinensis at this point, which I dug up. I've now got in a summer house, and we've replaced it with a sable minor, which was actually out the front, and it weren't actually getting as much sun as I thought it would in the spot it was in. So I thought I'm taking what to move the Livingstona chinensis out anyway, because that weren't doing well. Yeah, it's probably too much sun in the summer, and in the winter there it does get a little bit of dieback on the leaves. It weren't thriving, it was alive, but it weren't doing well, so I took the decision to pull that out and swap it for the sable minor. So we'll see how that does. I am going to remulch this area before the cold weather sets in. Like I say, I have put these shelters up early, so I'm not rushing about last minute, and I just want to see how they'd react in the wind and the rain. And with like I say, a nice sunny day yesterday, but it was windy, and overnight we had rain and 40-mile-per-hour winds and no problem whatsoever. So obviously we do get quite strong winds here on the east coast, so I'm not ruling out that maybe I have to put some extra support in at some point, but we'll play that by ear. So I don't like to over engineer stuff straight away. I'll keep it going for a few weeks. And another benefit of doing stuff a bit earlier than you need to is that you're not rushing about, and you're not having to rush about in the cold, wet, frosty weather. You can get it all done while it's pleasant, and you can see how it does. I mean, we do get winds, or potentially any time from now up until, you know, February, March time. You get sort of winter storms. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on the situation and see how we go on. I'm not ruling out putting some more bracing in on these if I need to. Maybe put some along the roof line down to the stake at the bottom, or putting a couple more stakes in and securing it that way. And I still haven't ruled out putting a few more panels along this side as yet, but like I say, it's early days, it's not winter yet, so we'll see how we go. Right, I think that is it for the winter protection for larger palm trees in the ground. Thanks for watching.